Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Audience Marketing Show, brought to you by Prospect Night. I'm here with my older brother Reese.
Hello.
And my younger brother Marcus.
Yo.
And for those that don't recognise my voice just yet, I'm Luke. So, as always, we're going to be talking about all things audience marketing. And today in this episode, we're really honing in on winning customers in a hyper-competitive world. And I guess the reason why we want to focus on this, we've all been in this marketing world for a long time, and ultimately realise it's not as easy as it used to be. I think that's definitely fair to say, isn't it? It's not sort of the Wild West where the dot-com boom has just come about and you can do Facebook advertising for 5p a click, and it's absolutely insane. It's a tough world. It is difficult and hard to acquire new customers. So we wanted to dedicate an episode to it, really. Something you talk about a lot, Marcus, is how that conversion journey has changed a lot over the last probably 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, Luke, it's definitely something that that I've been noticing over time, and also some close friends in the industry that I spend a lot of time talking to stuff about. We've definitely noticed it. It just feels like the click journey is longer. Users want to engage with brands more regularly before they purchase, whether that's through paid channels or whether that's through an email or through social channels. People want to be engaged with the brand. They want to know what the brand's purpose is. They want to understand if there's social proof. Yeah, I think that journey's got longer. I think historically we talk about something like buying a car or booking a big holiday as kind of having a long conversion journey. I think what's happened is that has kind of transcended down onto sort of even lower value purchases like clothes or a pair of trainers or like a new product. Yeah, people want to see what you're doing on social media. They want to see that people are engaging with you there. They want to see that social proof. They want to see more reviews. They want to be able to...
But no, sorry to jump in, but these are all things that didn't used to exist, right?
Exactly.
I know social media's been around for a long, long time now, but that rise of that social proof, and there's generally an expectation for someone to go, you know what, I want to know that people are reviewing this product. I want to know that, I want to have a look on Instagram and have a look at pictures and see what people look like wearing this or what they're saying about it. Like, these are sort of things that didn't exist before. So as much as business owners and as marketers, they're a massive asset to us. We all believe, and I believe that they are part of the reason why that conversion journey has changed and it has lengthened.
Definitely. I think things like free shipping, free returns used to be a bonus. Now it's like they're a given. It's what else can you do on top of that? And I think users or customers, we should probably call them, we all are them ourselves, like we demand more. We just want a better experience as customers when we're buying from a brand.
I think people are just put a little bit more kind of aware. People are aware of sales tactics. They know, like people know when they're being sold to, and I think brands that are doing advertising that try and hide the fact that they're selling is not great. So I think people want to be buying into the brand. They want to be like they want to understand what makes that brand tick, and these are all certain things that brands have to be aware of, that they can't just jump into someone's Instagram feed and expect to sell them a pair of trainers. They need to sort of, I think you put it, Marcus, they need to wine and dine them.
We need to be wined and dined. Yeah.
Yep.
Across multiple channels, across different forms of content. To buy into a brand, we do need to be wined and dined, and I think the tools are there to do it.
Yeah, Marcus, there's loads of tools out there, and that is one of the main reasons certain channels are competitive.
Exactly. It's like making a spaghetti bolognese.
It's the Prospect Night spaghetti bolognese analogy, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, like before you might make a spaghetti bolognese out of spaghetti, you got your mince, and you got your tomato sauce. Now you might suddenly have 15 different ingredients that you've got down from the local farmer's market. It's going to be a lot harder to make,
yep.
But once you actually get there, it's going to taste spectacular.
But it's having the knowledge to understand what ingredients to add to the bolognese, right? So you need to understand what basil does to a bolognese to make it taste sick.
Yeah.
So if you flip that to digital, you need to understand the tools that you have to make your marketing strategy tick.
Exactly. And before, we used like the 3 ingredients analogy, but before there might have only been 3 channels that you can do. It's like you're going to advertise through Google unless someone's going to buy through your website. Whereas now you can advertise across 15 different platforms, across millions of sites across the world. They can not only purchase through your website, they can purchase through Facebook Messenger or through WhatsApp or whatever it is. Like, there's a lot more out there for users to engage with.
It was so much easier. I'm not that old, but so I don't want to sound like one of those grumpy old men saying this, but it was so much easier to market 5-10 years ago, right? And even before that, 25.
For bigger brands.
No, I agree for bigger brands, but no, I think it's generally, I think it's so much harder to be a marketer now and to grow a business now. 100% is a lot harder because, to your point, Marcus, there's so many more avenues, there's so many more platforms. So I think the reason why, or I think the way that people need to look at how to win customers in such a competitive world is by really kind of understanding as many of those kind of platforms as possible.
So why that's a good point, Luke. So why do you think it's so harder? Because there is so many tools out there. Why is it? Because there's just so many people doing it?
I just it's everything. Like if you take some of the things like costs, it's much more expensive to do marketing, or it's more expensive to do advertising now. The CPCs across Facebook and Google ads have massively increased over the last probably 5-6 years. So it's definitely more expensive to do advertising, which is one massive thing. There's so many more brands. Like, to your point that you always say, the world is so much more accessible to businesses now. So if we take the drinks industry, for example, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you had Coca-Cola, right? You had Coca-Cola and you had some fizzy water brands. You had all of these. It was very hard for people to go and enter that market. Whereas now, like you guys know, one of my favourite brands is Ugly Drinks.
If you're out there.
Shout out, they do some amazing sort of flavoured seltzers. But for those guys, it's easier to get into the market. And I'm not saying it's easy to grow the business to the scale that they have, but it's easier to start.
That's a great point, Luke, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. It's easy. It's never been so easy for brands to start marketing from the ground up in a bedroom, but it's never been so harder to then scale to the bigger brands.
100%, because once you're in that world, it's a competitive world. It's hard to do this, and I guess that's what we're trying to sort of. I guess we'll move on to now in terms of how we believe people can go and win customers in this sort of competitive world. Because, as we said, it's not easy. So how do we believe people can go and win customers in such a competitive world?
So for me, the biggest foundation is getting skilled up. Like, this marketing world is fast paced. There's some amazing channels that have been here forever, but there's also ones that come and go. So for me, I think marketers need to be at the forefront of what's happening, what's changing, what's new, what's hot, what's the best ones their customers connect with. So for me, the biggest foundation for this solution is making sure that you are fully skilled up with the evolution of marketing.
No, 100%. Like, you talk about this all the time, Reece, where you talk about direct mail, for example. Yep. Nowhere near as many people know about the benefits and the power of direct mail as they used to. The flip side on its head. We might fast forward 2-3 years and people might just be taking email marketing for granted, or they might not have got clued up on the latest social media platform that's just launched. Like, I'm sure there was loads and loads of MySpace experts in that heyday. Did those guys then move on to become experts in Instagram? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
I was one of those MySpace experts, by the way.
Did you used to nudge people on there? Was it MySpace?
No, that was early Facebook poking.
Oh, yeah. But do you remember MSN, where you used to be able to send like flowers to people and it used to pop on the screen?
And now you can use something like bloomandwild.com to send flowers to someone's letterbox.
But do you remember your Hotmail username? I don't remember. They were all coming up on Radio 1.
Mine was Karate Boy at 1.
Mine was Badman 17.
What's yours, Reece?
I can't remember. My MySpace was Adidas Prince.
So let's go back onto this. So how do we believe people are winning customers in such a competitive world? For me, it's about storytelling more than ever. We spoke about this in another podcast about how it's important it is to build brand. And I know, Marcus, you've got some amazing examples and a bit of a fanboy of some of those brands. But for me, building that brand, yes, but it's about storytelling. I think that's how people give themselves the best chance of acquiring new customers, of just being so honest, being authentic, and just telling your story to the world. If you look at Huel, right? Huel are not the first people to do what they do, which is like completely natural vegetarian. They do have a vegan option, but just completely natural food powders, basically. They're not the first people to do it, yet they're absolutely smashing it. And I believe because they tell their story, and that's a massive way to capture people, not only capture people's attention, but to get people to really buy into it. So for me, one of the key ways to win customers is absolutely around that storytelling piece. How about you, Marcus?
Well, I would quickly, I'd like to get a little bit technical. Yeah, I think something you said earlier, Luke, was around CPCs getting more expensive. That's been happening for the last, 8 years that I've worked in this industry every year, and it doesn't really seem like that's going to go any other way, right? So that is kind of an inevitability that we've got to deal with. For me, then it's about, okay, our clicks are going to get more expensive, and we're also saying that people are going to want to click more often, so you're going to be spending a lot more to get customers to your website, essentially. So for me, it then becomes about conversion rate. What can you do to get that person to convert more regularly? That does seem a bit too ruthless when I say it, that you have to just make sure every single user is converting when they come to your website, and that's not exactly what I mean. But I think for me, it's about trying to increase conversion rate in any way you can, whether that's through your website, through that conversion funnel, or whether it's through how you communicate on your organic social or through your ads, or is it the UX of your whole website completely? I think for me, it's about acquiring customers in this hyper competitive world. It's about firstly accepting that it's going to be a little bit more expensive, because I do think in a lot of ways that's inevitable. And then the second part of it, I do think it's about just trying to maximize conversion rate in any way possible, because it isn't realistic to think that you're going to be able to get CPCs lower than they were 2 years ago through the big channels that you're still using, such as Google, Facebook, or Bing. Like, it's not happening.
No, I think that's a wicked point, Marcus. And I think traditionally, sort of conversion rate optimization and UX has very much been focused on the actual website. So once you've got people to the site, how can we make sure they can find our products best? How can we make sure their checkout is best? Absolutely still crucial, absolutely still fundamental. But I'm a massive believer that UX starts right at the top. So really understanding who your audience are. Again, I know we talk about it a lot, but understanding who your audience are, where they are online, and how they particularly like to, how do they like to buy? I believe that's part of your sort of conversion rate pattern. If your clients are, they're above 55 years old and you're expecting them to convert on Instagram, that's not going to be the case. It goes way back when people were trying to sell holidays for a mobile website. Conversion rates plummeted because people just weren't confident with paying that money. Now that has evolved and people are comfortable to convert via their mobile. But if you look at your channel, so if we look at direct mail is great for some audiences and not so great for others. The same as Instagram. So part of that conversion piece that you were just talking about, Marcus, 100% goes back to understanding kind of where those customers are, and then how they like to buy or how they like to go and join new businesses. Do they like sales? Do they like free postage? Do they just literally like to know that one of their friends has endorsed it? Or do they like influencers? Like, I think people buy in different ways, so it's not a one size fits all. But I think that's a really, really key bit to going and winning at this game of acquiring new customers.
I just want to add as well, talking about CPCs getting more expensive, I do think it is inevitable that your CPCs are going to get more expensive. That doesn't mean that you can't limit that as much as possible. And I think that is why it's so important to have an expert looking after your accounts, because CPCs are going to get more expensive. That's the way that it's going. But there are lots of things that you can be doing to try and limit that as much as possible.
Well, it always amazes me, right? When you have these conversations, people are generally shocked. They say, so the average CPCs across the world are growing. Everything in the world is getting more expensive, right? So you can no longer buy a coffee in London for under probably £3.50, £4. But that doesn't mean that I have to, every time I buy a coffee, have to buy one for £3.50, £5. Like, I can always look for a cheaper alternative, and there's ways. I'm a massive fan of Starbucks filter coffee, not because I'm cheap, but because I just think it tastes nicer. But again, to your point, Marcus, as much as things are getting more expensive, it doesn't mean people have to be content with that. There's definitely ways that you can sort of do your best to battle it and keep costs down.
Yeah, and actually the way that you're going to get your CPCs down is by focusing on what the user wants, because the more you're showing relevant ads to the right user at the right time, Google will benefit you with higher quality score and lower CPC. So you focus on the audience, which, as Luke says, we always like to drum that drum. We focus on the audience and our CPCs can be limited. And then, lo and behold, how do you improve your conversion rate? It's by focusing on the audience as well and giving them what they want at that time.
100%.
I think brands need to show that they care. I think a lot of times brands are looking to acquire customers quick, fast, and sell, but I think there's not enough on the actual brand loyalty and actually showing that you care. For me personally, as a customer, I connect with brands that I feel a part of a gang, part of a group, and for me, I think a lot of brands aren't doing that enough.
Personally, I can't remember ever seeing a completely cold brand that has said, go and buy this, and I've just gone, yeah, great, I've gone and bought it.
Yep.
Like, for me, it has to finish on how we measure and the data points we have on that. Marcus mentioned it when he was talking about brands need to feel comfortable building brand. Reese was talking about it, that people need to be able to kind of take risks and test new things. What that comes down to is the ability to not expect a sale from every single piece of marketing activity. And as much as it's easy, it's great for us to just sit here behind the mics and just say, yeah, of course, do loads of brand activity. And of course, you shouldn't be expecting a sale after every activity. We understand why businesses need to function in that way. And as a business ourselves, we absolutely understand that. But measuring it in that right way allow us to go, we might not have acquired a customer on this first DM piece, or we've done a storytelling piece of content and we didn't acquire someone. However, we can see from the data that these people signed up for our newsletter and therefore they're now as part of the family, and we're now marketing that way. They become as part of an audience that we might do bespoke ads to across Facebook. So we've entered them into the world, and I think people really undervalue the importance of bringing new people into the world. We talk about acquiring customers, but how are we addressing sort of acquiring new people into the family?
We should really rename this episode then.
To what?
What you've just said, I think it sounds good. Actually, it's not about, we've sort of positioned it wrong, but saying it's about winning customers. Maybe it's more about how do we grow your family.
No, I think that's a fantastic point, Mark, because I think it is. I think we're basically concluding our episode by disagreeing with what we set out to kind of talk about. It's not necessarily about winning new customers. That's the end goal. The end goal, of course, is to grow our businesses and to bring new people in. But actually, the key bit, and I guess where businesses should be focused on, is how are they growing their family? What are they doing to bring new people into their worlds? And then once they're in their worlds, what's the tactics to then go and bring them through to becoming a fully fledged customer?
The only thing I didn't think we spoke much about was the friction side and being visible on all channels. So the reason you said people take so long to purchase these days, which is a great point and it's true, but it's being visible. You said you wouldn't just go out and purchase something straight away. You'd pass, come back, maybe search them on Instagram, search them on Facebook, or sign up to their newsletter. It's making sure brands are visible everywhere possible.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
No, I agree with you. I think to your point around like people need to be skilled up on everything that's possible to them, right? And I get that some businesses they know because the data has showed them that their audience are not on there. So some brands would say, I don't need to be aware of Pinterest because they're a B2B marketer. Okay, I accept that. But I think by having the knowledge of all the platforms will allow you to make an informed decision when you're building that strategy to go, are we in the places that we need to be in? Because me as a customer, I might personally like to see your brand, and I for one convert on email really, really well. It's just my kind of behaviours. Whereas Reese, I know that you love looking at Instagram, and if you were buying a new pair of trousers, you would really go in to explore that channel. Yep. That's fair to say. So I think to moving on from your point about having the knowledge of the channels, I think it's being present on the channels that are right for your brand. So if your audience are on there and the data is showing you that it's a good way to be and it's a good place to have your messages, then absolutely be there. Because if you're not on all those channels, you're potentially missing a trick. So I think it's about knowledge, but then it's actually about executing a strategy that does cover all of the relevant bases. And I had a client that once used to say it, and it really, really stuck with me, but it's about fishing where the fish swim. And I think that's a great point. If your customer's on Instagram, make sure your strategy is there. I think it's also really important to understand the types of content or the way you get your messages out. Some businesses or some brands, their customers will like video, and that's how they do. So fashion, it's going to be really, really hard to sell someone your new sort of fashion line through audio, because people are going to need to really understand it. Whereas in the B2B space, in our world, we're talking to other businesses, we feel that audio or written, and indeed video still plays a massive part, are important ways. So that has to come back to not only your organic marketing, making sure you've got a varied content based on how your data is telling you people are consuming it, but in your advertising, right? So making sure that you're not just putting image ads out, you're putting video ads, you're putting promoting your podcast. So I think it's important with the content side of things as well that you're varying that up, and I think that's going to give you the best chance of bringing people into your ecosystem.
Couldn't agree more, mate.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully everyone's really enjoyed this session. I've been Luke.
And I'm Reese.
I'm Marcus. Thanks for listening.
Thanks again for listening to the Audience Marketing Show. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about Prospect Night, you can find us on the socials or by visiting www.prospectnight.com. The final episode of this series is going to be an Ask Us Anything. So as you're listening throughout the season, just drop us a message, drop us a tweet, LinkedIn, wherever your favourite social platform is. Ask us any questions you have on audience marketing, and we're going to do a nice summary in the final episode. So we look forward to hearing your questions.